Welcome to the latest edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime with me, Marshan Kenny. Well, I'm going to start today's show with a little message for you. So, if you know anything about me and my backstory, when I was 8 years old, my mom committed suicide. And when I was 12 years old, my dad died in prison. I was an only child, no brothers or sisters, and I didn't have a bright future really to look at until a program called Boys Hope, Girls Hope stepped in and really changed my life. So what I'm getting at about this program, because it did impact my life so well and change everything for my trajectory of the future. They have a golf tournament coming up Thursday, September 21st at Beauchene Country Club in Mandeville, Louisiana, where all the proceeds go towards helping these young men and young women in that program in the greater New Orleans area to have a much brighter future. So if you're a golfer and you can get a foursome together and play some golf that day, go ahead and round them up, because all the proceeds do go towards a tremendous cause. So thank you for listening to that message right there. Well, as you know, this show is big with interviews, and today's interview is no different. It comes from a guy who was in the NFL for a couple years, and he's in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame. So today's interview is with one of the greatest quarterbacks in Southern Miss history, Jeff Kelly. Well, today's interview is one of the most accurate passers in the history of Southern Miss football. He's in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame. He's going into his 13th year as the Saraland football high school head football coach. So with all that said, I'm bringing you today the one and only Jeff Kelly. And Jeff, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Marchette, thank you for having me on today. We've, just got off the field about an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. And so we've had a good day getting ready for our season, but good gracious, I've been following, your show the last several months. And as a fan, I love what you're doing. I appreciate you having me on to talk Southern Miss and talk Go Niggle football.
Heck yeah, man. People were asking me to get Jeff Kelly on it. I got to get you on it. Plus, we got history. I know you, man. So, but getting into your career, it's a no-brainer to have you on this show. I mean, when you finished your career at Southern Miss, you're the first passer in history to have 3 seasons of over 2,000 plus yards. I mean, nobody had done it. I mean, you had a heck of a career. Threw for over 7,000 yards in your career. I mean, how do you attribute all those stats, man? I mean, you put up a lot of them.
Hey, the first year I attributed a lot to Todd Pinkston and Sherrod Gideon. Getting a chance to come in as a sophomore, back in '99, I think, and play with those guys. Really, for a young guy that's trying to figure it out and find his way, we were kind of maybe young up front, and but I had those guys in Sherrod and Todd that I've watched for 2 years. Just light it up with Lee and those kind of things, and watch them in practice. It really, kind of made that first year, a lot easier, and they were both, great players and, tremendous competitors. And I enjoyed watching them and having 2 years behind Lee, a guy like Lee that really took me under his wing for a couple of years and kind of taught me a lot of things. And so I felt confident, coming in when I got an opportunity in '99 and was surrounded by guys that could make plays. And there were times that, early on in the career, I really leaned on those guys, and we found our way and really was efficient. I think in '99, that was, really a good year for us getting going. And then, we had, Coach Blonakis and Petrino, some of those guys coming in my junior and senior year. And it was a good time, good gracious. It seems like it was only yesterday, but heck, that's 20 plus years ago, 22, 24 years ago, something like that. We're getting old, man.
Man, we're growing up. But I tell you what, man, we're going to get into a lot of that stuff in storytelling time with Jeff Kelly. And I got to tell you something. People ask me, what's the toughest position to play in football? It's quarterback, hands down, end of story, period. I mean, Jeff, for you to stand in the pocket and not knowing if somebody 250, 300 pounds is about to hit you in the back, but you got to stay cool under pressure, make that throw. Man, what does it take to stay cool in the pocket with that kind of pressure? Because you did it for a long time.
It's a tough thing, and I find that challenge now as a coach, talking to our young quarterbacks. We got some special dudes, and you got to be able to stare down the gun barrel, and you got to be able to look, and feel the pressure and feel everything going on around you and keep your eyes focused downfield or whatever your read is and anticipating, those windows for the quarterback. But it's just one of those things that, you kind of see it develop and you want to, it's one of the things that gets, better and easier in time the more you do it. But, you got to be a little bit crazy to do it, to stand in there, guys like you and those other linebackers and defensive ends coming in. And you've got to find a way to kind of go in that quiet spot and quiet the noise and kind of focus on the things that you're supposed to be looking at. And it's hard. There's times if you go 10 passes and you got pressure, you got guys in your face 10 times, when you call that 11th pass, you got to expect, that you're going to have a clean pocket and you can't anticipate the rush. You got to feel it and just let your instincts take over and play.
Oh yeah, you built all those instincts at an early age, man. It all started somewhere, Jeff, and that was Citronelle High School, just outside of Mobile. You were an all-state performer as a junior and senior, man. Talk about the high school days. Give me a couple stories, man, where it all started.
Hey, so I played at Citronelle High School, played for a guy named Ronnie Massey. And, I guarantee you, I wouldn't be coaching right now had I not had the experience to play for a guy like him. Ball was different then than it is now. I mean, we threw it probably more than a lot of other people, but for us to throw it 20 times a game, that was a lot. And, I remember, about that time Florida State was taking off and Charlie Ward and all this kind of stuff. Coach Massey went to visit Florida State and those guys and come back, and he had 2 plays that he was going to put in, and they were in the shotgun. So that was the first time I knew what the shotgun was, or we had 2 plays in shot, and I felt like we were running a run and shoot or something. And but we had a great run there, and just a really great, just kind of like a Friday Night Lights community. The community shuts down and comes out and play, and was blessed to have some good years. And, you get into your spring training going into your senior year and you hope to get an opportunity to go play, all of us, and we deal with high school kids now. And even me back in the day, you wanted to get an opportunity to go play. And by the time I got a chance to meet Coach Randy Butler, Coach Randy Butler was the coach that recruited me, and we lived way down a dirt road. I mean, we lived in the country, and the first time that Coach Butler and Coach Bauer came to the house to recruit me and sit down and have dinner with our family, I felt like I was on top of the world, and he was just such a real guy. And then the head coach, man, when the head coach came to Deer Park, Alabama, to have dinner with us, I felt like, on top of the world there. But just, and really, and watching football, college football, I remember when you guys played, I think it was maybe in East Carolina on TV back in maybe in 96.
Yeah, that Thursday night game. That's actually when Lee Roberts had a little coming out party.
That was Lee had his coming out party and had all the consecutive completions. And we didn't live at about an hour and a half from Hattiesburg, hour 15 minutes, but I didn't, other than the Brett Favre days, you knew what Southern Miss was about. But, getting a chance to watch y'all play on ESPN on Thursday night and play so well, and especially offensively, that was about the time that they were coming around and starting to recruit me. And watching that game, I still remember this day. I said, man, as a quarterback, that's the place I want to go play, just how well they played that night and that kind of stuff. So, had a chance to come over there, signed. I did not play baseball my senior year, and I kind of drove back and forth in the afternoon to watch y'all, or to watch spring training, try to be in the huddle and learn, everything I could. And that was definitely an eye-opening experience. For sure. I remember on the side, there was, how things get kind of feisty during spring training. I was on the sideline. I was a 12th grader. It's about April. Y'all were in spring training before I ever enrolled. And, man, there was a fight broke out, in there. And you were in the middle of it too. You had TJ Big Shed was in all of them, I think. But I knew that opened my eyes. Hey, when I get up here next year, you better strap them on tight.
Yeah, there were a lot of fights back then, that's for sure, man. But you were a heck of a big recruit. I mean, you chose Southern Miss over Georgia Tech, Baylor, Vanderbilt. I mean, you had some offers, so we're lucky we got you because the career you had was awesome. I mean, 97, when you get there, in 98, you redshirt 97. I mean, Lee Roberts is a starter right there. So you're learning with Lee and learning under Coach Bauer, former quarterback. What were some tricks of the trade maybe you picked up from those two guys, Coach Bauer and Lee?
The thing, from Coach Bauer, first off, just, how he managed the entire team and the offense. And although he may not have been calling every play of every drive or whatever, he was in, totally in tune with what we were doing. When you get to college from high school, you think you got it all figured out. You think playing quarterback is easy. When we come in and Coach Kex, the offensive coordinator, was a real terminology heavy offense. And so having to learn protection and having to learn, what makes you hot, and how to adjust routes and what your receivers are looking at. There was such a learning curve for me to have to figure it all out. And, to see a guy like Lee, who was one of the smartest dudes, and just, a guy that even for my first visit, when he was our host, he and Tracy and that kind of stuff, but just how he prepared and the mental side of it. I felt like if that's an important part of playing that position, that was something I could use to my advantage. I wanted to be as prepared as I could each and every, time. And he was so durable, and at the time it was just me and Blaze, I think, as the backup guys. And so it's a good thing probably for everybody that we didn't have to play that year. And but it was definitely a learning curve. But just the mental side of the game was something that was a huge learning curve for me. But then also seeing the speed of the game. Coming up, and I'll be honest with you now, playing, a secondary like we had there with Pat, Surtain and Jamal and, all those guys. And then the linebacking core with, you and Latrell and TJ, and good gracious, I think I was there 2 or 3 years before TJ ever said anything to me, it's just one of those deals. And then you got Big Sid and DQ was always talking and trying to get in your head, and you got AD that just looks like a monster out there. So I'm telling you that you had to compete every day just to stay on the field. And there's no doubt, playing scout team, working a scout team against you guys, it made me get better in a hurry because you had to. I mean, that's just, that was the expectation.
Man, I appreciate that. You took some words out of my mouth talking about the nasty bunch defense you had to go against prepping for college football. But in 99, you get into your redshirt sophomore year. Lee's gone, man, battling for the starting job. First game was Tulane at the Rock. Tulane's on a 13-game winning streak at that point. 2 days before the game, you still don't know who's starting. Talk to me about that story and when you learned about going to this game as a starter.
I think to get to that story, you got to back up a little bit because, I was a backup in 98 and Lee's senior year, and then he graduates. And I felt like that almost I inherited the job. I felt like because I was the next guy up, I was the oldest guy. I felt like I'd earned that right to do it going into that spring. And then we bring in another guy, a junior college guy, Cable from California, who was tremendously talented and a great player. And, I got flat beat out in the spring. He had a great spring and I, he earned that deal. And I was really down. I was frustrated coming out of spring and, just really made it a point throughout the summer to go, however it worked out, I wanted to work my tail off. I wanted to be ready when fall camp come just to go out and play my very best. And I felt like going into August, going into camp, I just wanted to go out there and play well. And one of the great things I've learned, it's always stuck with me, a little deal. And Coach Bauer, we've talked about it. He was such a great encourager. You go through, camp and camp's long, and I felt like I was playing well. I felt like I was getting better. I felt like I was closing the gap. but it wasn't really showing in the reps. It wasn't really showing when you go team and still working the twos and that kind of stuff. Well, I remember we were throwing routes on air where we, in the old, grass field where the big fancy business building is right now. Throwing routes. I'll never forget. Coach Bauer walks by me, passed me on the hip, and he says, "Kelly, I see you working." And he kept walking, and for the first month of August and all through the summer, you work and you put all that in. You don't know if anybody's watching. You don't know if it matters or whatever. But he just said that little comment and he kept walking. And that was all the fire I needed to just keep playing. And so we get to game week and we start rotating a little bit. I'm not really taking the reps with the ones, but we're rotating a little bit. And 2 days before the game, Coach Keck calls us and he says, "You know what?" He says, "Jeff, you got the first 2 series. Cable, you got the third. And then we'll roll from there, see how it goes." And I was absolutely floored. I called my dad back in Deer Park, fired up. He thought I was lying, whatever. So we get to the game, and it was a morning game. I think it was Monday, Labor Day game, and it was about 100 degrees. And we get to breakfast. We're in Van Hall eating breakfast for the game, and I'm nervous as heck, and I'm sitting there, and you go back, these little things, and these coaches don't know how they affect guys. Coach Butler, I remember, comes by, and he passed me on the shoulder, and he kind of whispers, he says, "Hey, God will never put something in front of you you're not ready for." He said, "Let's go play." And so I get the first 2 drives. First drive, they come with a blitz. Sherrod reads hot. I throw a slant, 5-yard slant. He makes about 4 guys miss and goes to score for a touchdown. 50-yard touchdown. Great play. It was a 5-yard pass. He did the rest, but that was good. The second drive, we get there, a couple big third down completions. We get in there and kick a field goal. And so we're up 10-0, and Tulane's coming off their big season the year before. And when it got time for the third drive, I was told to get back out there for the third drive. So I really, it just kind of worked out that way. And we had a good game the first game, and I had some learning stretches in the first 3 or 4 games of the season, playing Texas A&M and Nebraska. But, just thankful for Coach Bauer. Those guys give me a chance and believing, starting that season off and had a lot of good players around me that made it easy.
Oh, yeah, a monster game against Tulane. I mean, 4 touchdowns, blew out Tulane and ended their 13-game winning streak. But you just hit on 2 games right there. Talk about initiation into college football.
Good gracious.
Back-to-back games at Nebraska's number 5, at Texas A&M number 5-2 at the back-to-back. That's a wrecking crew in the black shirt defense when they were seriously Nebraska and Texas A&M.
No, it was.
What were those? What was that like?
So we played the first 2 games at home, played Tulane, then we played, I think, Northwestern State or something. And then we go on the road to Nebraska, and defense plays phenomenal, play great. And we make a lot of plays offensively, and we turn it over. I turn it over 2 or 3 times. I throw a pick at the 5-yard line against Nebraska. We're going in, have a chance to win that game, and just don't get it done. And that was an eye-opener. And then we go to A&M. Really was one of the first doses of going to play in a hostile environment, Back when that place was rocking, that's a tough place to go play. And we didn't play real well. I didn't play real well and really didn't even finish the game and that kind of stuff. And, but that was it's one thing to do it against who we started out the first couple games and had some success against Nebraska. But I think some of those games against Texas A&M and Nebraska made us better, for some of those big moments coming up in conference later in the season in that year.
Yeah, speaking of that, man, as if at A&M and at Nebraska wasn't tough enough. I mean, then you're at East Carolina, who's number 16, 3 consecutive road games like that. But, man, you talk about make up for things. You throw for over 250 yards, 3 touchdowns against East Carolina, get a big win. That was a tough place to play, too. Did that feel like one of those maybe coming out moments? I think I got this thing figured out in East Carolina.
Well, I don't know if I had it figured out, but it was an opportunity coming out after playing really not very well versus A&M and going to play a really good team. And really all, everything was clicking. Defense had a great game. We had some plays, special teams. Offensively, you know, we had some big plays. Pink had a couple big posts over the top. Sherrod had a go ball on a third down on the touchdown. And that was a game really that, you know, Derek Nix, D Nix come out and had a big game. You know, it was early in his career, the second year, and we really played well offensively and felt like, you know, coming into conference play, we always knew East Carolina, David Garrard and all those guys, that was going to be one of the teams you had to beat if you want to compete in Conference USA. And going on the road at that place was that was a big win and really gave us a lot of confidence going into the season.
Again, had a heck of a season, top 25 just about the entire season. And it set up a game a lot of people still talk about. You're at Louisville, ending the season. It's late in the fourth quarter. It's tied 27-27. You guys don't convert on the third down, but Jeff Bauer does this trickerization on Louisville in this fake punt with Sean Mills. Can you walk me through that, man? Because that's one of the most memorable plays in Southern Miss history.
No, it was good. You know, first half we didn't hit on a whole lot offensively, and we got some things going. Second half, third down, we you know, kind of flushed out the pocket. Buck Machota was really open down the middle, and the pass was just kind of out of reach. And so we a play that, you know, Jamie Purser, the pride of Red Bay, a good friend of mine, good gracious, you can't beat Purser. Mills kills, you know.
Mills kills. Mills kills.
You know, Coach Bauer needed an Oscar for the acting job he pulled. That not only during the play, but communicating pregame, I think, to the officials, kind of, hey, this may come out, you know, because actually, you know, they threw the flag on that play. You know, as you know, they threw the flag, and then they had to come together and say, you know, no, we knew this was coming. This is a legal play. But what a great call and a gutsy call to pull something like that out with 3 or 4 minutes to go for the conference title. I mean, talking about the stones it takes to make that call right there, and then to execute it like Sean did and Jamie did and all those guys. One of the best plays, you know, I know when I was there at Southern Miss. And but then also after the play, you know, Coach Bauer working those officials, you know, like he always did so well to make sure that thing stayed the right way.
Heck yeah, with that visor off, picked off at the referees all the time, man. I used to love it. But man, y'all pulled that off, 30-27 win Conference USA at Louisville. And then, man, sets up, you guys go to the gold standard of Southern Miss football back then, the Liberty Bowl, and top 25 conference champs. How was Liberty Bowl week for you being in Memphis and knowing how big of a deal this was?
Well, it was one of those things we reported, I think, Christmas Day. And, you know, I think there was a coordinator change Christmas morning. You know, and so that was a challenge for us offensively and me offensively as a sophomore quarterback coming up, just to kind of, hey, circle the wagons for that week to get practice schedules, scripts, call sheets. Hey, what do we like in this situation? And those kind of things. That was you know, it was a challenge, and we did a lot of good things. And defensively, we had a great game. We pulled out a hard-fought win. I don't remember what the score was, maybe 17-13, somewhere in that range.
23-17 against a really good Colorado State team. Yeah.
23-17. And, you know, the thing I remember about that game, you know, our protection, there's certain things that made you hot, you know, that made you adjust those routes when they, you know, would bring certain blitzes, you know, and they had figured that out. They had figured out what, you know, made us hot that game and what would make our receivers have to adjust and run a hitch route. And so they would, what they did a bunch of the game is in third and long, they would make us hot. Knowing they were making us hot, we would have to, you know, dump it off, throw short, throw a slant, and they wouldn't get up and press, you know, and so they would just come up, make the tackle. And so, but we found a way to get the win. I think that was the night, the last night, 1999, December 31st. I think we thought the lights were going out that night or whatever. But, man, what a night in Memphis. That was a great win and, you know, always a lot of fun. I remember the trip of 97. You know, I probably enjoyed that trip a little bit too much in 97 because I knew I wasn't playing a whole lot, you know, redshirting. But to see the atmosphere the couple times that we played up there in Memphis for the Liberty Bowl was definitely one of the great memories as a Golden Eagle.
Yeah, definitely a special night. You hit on something right there because it was such a big topic. Anybody that lived in the 90s remembers that. I mean, you guys win the game, conference champs, top 25, finish number 13, big deal. But man, the world may end at midnight because it's Y2K.
That's right.
What were you thinking that night, man?
Well, I think in '97 after the game, I think everybody kind of went out, or we you go out on the town or go to Bill Street and just hang out, walk around. I think that night nobody knew what was happening, so they had like a Southern Miss party in the hotel, and so I guess if the lights were going to go out, we were all going to be there together, whatever. But I remember it was a great time. But yeah, I mean that was a weird feeling. So on one hand, you say, hey man, this may be my last football game ever. Let's go light it up. Let's go play. But that was a challenging week, Marchand, offensively, and a lot of people probably don't know that wasn't inside the building. From an offensive standpoint, we felt like, that we did a really good job, kind of overcoming a lot of challenges right there, getting ready to go play, and Coach Bauer and Coach Rodriguez and all our coaches there on the offensive staff did a great job, kind of getting us ready to play, and I think Mitch called the game that night. Mitch did a great job. I see him down here coaching. I think he's at Gulf Shore still, and we still talk about some of those times. But he did a great job, calling the game that night and getting us in situations to play.
Heck yeah. Well, thank goodness the world didn't end. We're still here, Jeff. And
that's right.
You made a lot more things happen in Southern Miss. But I do want to talk about something, man. Guys that handle themselves as student athletes to the peak levels, I have the utmost respect for them. You were an elite student athlete. I mean, you got your undergraduate in 3 years, your master's in 5 years. You had a 4.0. You were one of 16 guys on the National Scholar Athlete team. I mean, you handled the books very well. And I didn't do so well in school, but I stayed eligible. So I had the utmost respect for guys like you. How was that balancing 4.0 work and being a D1 quarterback, man?
Hey, now I'm coaching football. Think about all that.
But still, that was incredible work.
It was, and I took great pride in it. It was one of those things. I'll be honest with you. You mentioned, earlier about recruitment. Something about Southern Miss that I just absolutely loved. I don't know if it was just the people, the coaches, the players. Just felt like home. It's where I wanted to go to school. It's where I wanted to play. It just felt like it was the right thing, and kind of walked away from Vanderbilt, walked away from Georgia Tech. Baylor came in late after the OC, after Lou Holtz got fired at Notre Dame, and the OC took the head job at Baylor after I had committed and that kind of stuff. But, I'll be honest with you now, some conversations with my parents, having to sit down with mom and dad who, everybody wants their kid to get a chance to go to Vanderbilt, go to school, right? And so, I made it a point. First, when I got to Southern, I wanted to go to the Polymer Science School. I didn't know about polymer science. I just knew it was a great school, and so I kind of made a deal. Hey, I'm gonna go be a polymer scientist. I'm gonna go play great ball. I felt like I'm gonna get a chance to get coached really well, go play great ball. But I found out real quick you really couldn't be a polymer science major and play football because of all the labs and the practice and the afternoons, and then. Heck, something about I love school. I loved, got hooked up with some great professors in the business school and the finance school, and was in class with Gully and Villalonga and all those guys. We just had a great time and got in. We were there at summer anyway. We were there all year working out, whatever. So why not go take 15 hours in the summer? I didn't have anything else to do. You couldn't play golf at Van Hook that much. So I just took a lot of loaded up, and we graduated early in finance, and went to got the MBA stuff going, and it just was it was something that really wasn't that hard. Just had great professors, and had teammates that we were going to class together and that kind of stuff. But I really wanted. I don't want to say felt guilty or anything, but I wanted my parents, to be know that I went to Southern Miss and it wasn't just about ball. I wanted to go, get a master's, get an MBA, whatever. I don't know what the future holds. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to go in investments and, kind of got involved in that, after I finished playing. And, I think getting drafted may have, been it's kind of changed the course of my life in a lot of ways, because before I wasn't really expecting for all that to happen. And, but it kind of got me out of that path and, kind of the one I am now, and everything has kind of fell into place since then.
Yeah, man, very impressive what you did academically for sure, man. And before we get to the NFL, I just want to hit a little bit more on your college football career because we're about to get into some really impressive stuff. I mean, we talk about anyone, anywhere, anytime. At Southern Miss being a slogan back then, we'll play anyone, anywhere, anytime. I mean, you played at Nebraska, at A&M, and at East Carolina, all top 20 ranked, 3 road games consecutive. Well, to start your junior year, man, you guys are opening up at number 13, Tennessee, at number 15, Alabama, and then at Oklahoma State. That's your first 3 road games. Going into that in the offseason, in your junior year, what are you thinking, man, looking at that schedule? Because that's big time.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like we were going to light it up. I felt like we were going to light it up. I felt like, coming out of our sophomore year, I felt like what we were doing offensively, we were just kind of hitting our stride. We go to Tennessee, and we've got a bunch of young guys playing, a bunch of young skilled guys playing at the wide receiver role. And it was kind of the first year that you had, those Bridges and Tucker and all that group that was such a great O-line in there. And we really played well at Tennessee, and we have a 2-point conversion late to tie it up. And we feel like still this day we were in, and then we go to Alabama.
Yeah, Jeff, let's talk about that Alabama game and really focus on that. That's one of the biggest wins in the history of Southern Miss football. I'll let you tee it up, but man, really, really dig into that big win that night.
No, hey, we had a bunch of guys from Alabama on our roster every year, and that was always a big game. And those coaches in Alabama I remember Dubose, didn't think I was good enough, tall enough, whatever. So you got an extra chip on your shoulder when you go in there and play. And frankly, I thought we were better than those guys. I felt like from the defense that we put on the field and what we were able to do, and we were getting confident as heck offensively. I was feeling, good. We go into that game and I get an injury, and have to go in and get looked at by the docs and that kind of stuff. Kenny King, I give him a hard time. I had 2 dirty shots right there on the knee, back to back on the deal, but we have a good time with it. We joke all the time, but we score. We get an interception. I don't remember. We have 3 scores really quick. We have a touchdown to Leroy Handy, and then we kick it off, and then we get a strip and a return on the kickoff, and then a drive or 2 later they throw the throwback, and Ray Walls, is sitting there waiting, and the next thing you know, it's 21-0. And then we just poured it on defensively. And I'll tell you, one of the best things, I spoke at a function, M Club or something the week after. Growing up in Alabama, about mid-3rd quarter, that place was emptying out. You could see that stadium empty out. And that was a lot of fun to see that. And what a great night for, all things Southern Miss. It played well. And I remember we had a great week of practice, and Coach K they rode us hard that week, and man, that was such a gratifying, win. But it wasn't a surprise for anybody in that locker room. I think everybody felt like we were better than those guys, that year, and they just went out there and did it. And it was, a great example of what we're all about. Defense scoring, special teams getting a score, offense, getting some scores in there, and kind of got us going into that year.
Yeah, I don't know every score in the history of Alabama football, but I know there hasn't been many teams that beat Alabama 21-0 in Alabama. So that was a big one right there. And then after that, beat Oklahoma State on the road. So that tough schedule, y'all finished 2-1, man.
Yeah, go to Oklahoma State, and I'm telling you, I can't move that week. I practiced a day or 2 that week, and just kind of had a sprained knee deal going on. It was taped up, and it was one that we were in the gun every play, and it was our O-line did a great job, and it really played into our, strengths, what we needed to happen. They were a big blitz cover 0 team. And so it was one of the deals. Hey, we just let them come and throw it. And it wasn't a deal where we had to move the pocket. And we caught them in some situations, and Coach dialed up some great plays, and we caught them in some big blitzes, and really threw it really well that night. But that's a tough place to play. That's kind of like our place. The fans are right on top of it, and so it was definitely a fun environment to go play.
Yeah, and there seems to be a theme of your career. We'll see what we're talking about, especially by next year. Y'all beat Tulane 56-24 that year too, and you put up big numbers, man. And but what's this thing going on, man? You got a theme of blowing out Tulane in games you start.
I don't know. They were. I was there in the Superdome, and I know they're a great program. But after that year, they just wasn't. We had good days against them, and they didn't play as good a defense. Those next couple of years, and we had some big days against them, and it just worked out that way.
Yeah, but it was like you hated Tulane or something. Some of the numbers y'all put up against them, man. But man, that year wound up being 8-4, and sets up one of the best games in the history of Southern Miss football. LaDainian Tomlinson and number 13 TCU in the Mobile, Alabama Bowl, the GMAC Bowl back then, and that's your hometown area, baby. How big of a night was that for you, the setup, knowing family's going to be there, friends, and all that good stuff? And if you want to talk about the final play, go ahead, because that final play is magical when you won the game.
I could go into great detail on it. I remember when Coach Bauer told us, we knew we were going to a bowl. We didn't know which one, but he told us after practice one day on the practice field, we're going to the Mobile Bowl. And, I don't know, I may have fist pumped or gave a heck yeah, whatever, but I was fired up to go back home, and especially playing a team like TCU and LaDainian and the two great defenses playing. And going into that game, our coaches did a great job preparing us. And Gary Patterson was kind of there, and defensively it was kind of a new thing what they were doing, so it was a big challenge. Their version of the 4-2-5 was kind of just coming into play, and how they played quarters coverage. And so we felt like we were just dialed in like crazy, and we knew when they were coming. We knew when they were playing coverage, and we felt we had a function during the week. I think it was the FCA dinner or something, but they had a really good linebacker that was sitting at a table right in front of me, and he didn't know I was sitting right behind him. And somebody asked him what he thought about the game, and I heard him respond, "I don't think they're very good on offense." And so I patted him on the back and said, "We'll see about that. We'll see you, whatever night it was." But, we talked to our guys about that. And that was something that, two good teams going at it. We caught fire about the mid third quarter on. I think we scored 3 or 4 times, 3 times late going into it. And, we end up another great example. I think it's a tie ball game. They got the ball. They end up punting. I think Leo Barnes maybe gets a tip of the punt, and so they kind of shank the punt. We get it about midfield with about 40, 50 seconds. And a couple plays, I get a scramble, and we end up on about the 30-yard line with, I don't know, 10 seconds, 8 seconds.
There's 8 seconds left. It's 21-21, and you got to make a big play to win the game.
we Coach K called a play called Shift Right Z Hitch. Now, I want to tell you about Shift Right Z Hitch. Shift was what we called our empty stuff, and that's still what we call it today. If you were at practice today, we called Shift Right Z Hitch. So you had 2 receivers on the left, you had 3 on the right, and the outside guy to my left, he ran a hitch, and everybody else was kind of running all goes. They were attacking the field, and we ran that play all week, and it was designed to beat their TCU quarters coverage, whatever. And we practiced at Murphy High School here in Mobile all week, and we run that play every day, and I missed it every dadgum day. All right, I missed it. I didn't hit the throw not one day. And I was kind of surprised when the call came in. And so we call Shift Right Z Hitch. All right. And so the defensive end on the left, I don't know what happened, but he comes free. KJ, Kenneth Johnson, does a great job beating that Sam backer and gets over the top and gets leverage on the safety. And you know, I put it out there where I think it's got a shot. I get hit. And it was a cold night that night, but the stadium was packed, and I remember that place went nuts. And so I didn't really know what happened. I know we scored at first, but I knew it was good. And so, man, that was such a play that I'll never, at a moment that I'll never forget. And to do it at home, I had a bunch of buddies. You know, we all grow up. You know, you got buddies in town, and I don't know how many people that I knew was there in the stadium, but there was a lot of family and friends, and it was fun to win like that. That's how you dream about it, man. You're in the backyard, game on the line, last play of the game, and it worked out our way, and you know, definitely something I'll never forget.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Your throw right there to Johnson for the 29-yard win, man, that's in Southern Miss history. A lot of people watch that replay 100 times. So head to YouTube, everybody, if you want to see Kelly to Johnson one more time in the 2000 GMAC Bowl. That'll go down in history. You talked about Coach Bauer a lot during this interview, but really from a personal perspective, what was it like at this point in your career, heading to your senior year, the relationship you have with Coach Bauer and what he meant to you?
You know, he you know, the thing about Coach Bauer is he cared for you outside the ball, you know, and you know, there are times that, especially going into my senior year, I was kind of finishing up master's school, and I've already played a couple of years, and I felt like, you know, we had a really good relationship. We would have conversations and talk about, you know, things football related. And, you know, I know he had a similar path in, you know, going through the business school and masters and playing. He was a quarterback there. And then he was trying to, you know, and he got into coaching. And that was about the first time I kind of started to play with the idea of, you know, hey, what are you going to do after, you know, ball is over? And, you know, just talking, and he was talking about, you know, the path he took and GAing and those kind of things. But, you know, I've leaned on him, you know, throughout the years as a coach as well, you know, going through just bouncing ideas. He's always going to answer the phone, and he'll call and check on you, say, how's it going, and keeps up with kind of what we're doing here, coaching and that kind of stuff in Saraland. So I really appreciate not only, you know, him believing in you enough to give you a shot to go play and lead the team and that kind of stuff, but just staying in touch and just always being there if you need to bounce an idea off of him or ask a question, you know. And that's we're in that business, and he's definitely given me some advice over the years.
Oh, good stuff right there. Where Coach Bauer means a lot to so many people, and heading into this senior year, man, you're one of the better quarterbacks in America at this point. I mean, you are the guy. In the first game of that season, we got a P5, what they call now, opponent at the Rock in Oklahoma State. Did it have a little bit cooler preparation vibe, just a little bit more meaning, knowing you got kind of a bigger name at home to kick off the season?
You know, it was an ESPN game as well, and it was a day game, and it was a primetime kind of situation. And you know, we felt like, you know, coming off the success we had the year before and the big win in the Mobile Bowl game, I felt, you know, we felt good coming into it, you know, and we had some good players, you know, offensively, and we felt like, you know, we were ready to take that next step, you know, as a team, as an offense. And there's some things we did really well as a unit, as an offense. And, you know, we got off to the good start there, and D Nix had a big game, you know, and kind of leading us. And, you know, it was a good year. It was a year that we felt like, you know, there was a loss or two late in the year that obviously stung and stuck with you. We'd like to have, you know, you think about the Louisville game at home. I think about the TCU game, you know, to end the season that year, especially playing them the year before. I just, you know, it was a good year, but it was one of those years you look back and you say, dadgum, if I could have a couple of those games back to do it again, you know, it could have been a lot better.
Oh, I understand that. If you don't mind, on a lighter note, 2 games you won, I'm going to ask you about. And there's one that's just from a quarterback perspective. I want to see your take on this. I mean, you guys beat UAB 3-0. You don't see that score every. Jeff, what happened to offense?
Why'd you bring that up, Marcin?
That day? What happened? What happened, man?
I learned something about coaching. So, all right, they were really good on defense. Really good on defense. They had 2 NFL guys on the D front, linebacker. They were really good. and we had a turnover going inside the 5. We had some missed opportunities, and it was hard sledding. We ended up winning. What was it, 3-0?
3-0.
Times you walk off the field and you win, but you felt like you lost. And so I don't know if you remember, that's when all the renovations was going on. So we had the trailer kind of beside, kind of by the M Club building right there. And that was our locker room at halftime and post game. So we would go in there. So we went in there after that game, and it was 3-0, and we won, but it was quiet. Nobody was saying a word. It wasn't. But and then Coach Bauer comes in, and I think we're about to get ripped, and it's just dead silent. He comes in. And I'm telling you, he lets out a holler and a scream, and he's fired up. And he said that night, he said, "Man, you work too hard to not enjoy a win. And there's no such thing as a bad win." And it kind of changed the mood there. But man, that was a challenge. But
you got the win, and Bauer was happy. But you talk about make up for that, Jeff, and this is where a theme's going with your story, man. It's like you took your day out on Tulane. There was a game that year you won 59-6. You broke the school record with 400 plus yards in that game.
Yeah.
Why are you taking your day out on? Why are you taking your day out on Tulane? No, your career.
Yeah, I don't know. And that was just one drive in the second half, I think. I mean, I kind of wish they'd have scored a little bit more, so we could have put up 600 yards or whatever. It was one of those games that it just seemed like everybody was open. I mean, every time Sean Mills turned around, he was open. Every time Leroy stuck, he was open. And Danny Fowler and Bobby Garner. Bobby Garner was a guy that you talk about a tight end being a quarterback's kind of safety blanket or best friend, whatever. Bobby was a guy that probably one of the most underrated dudes. I know during my time there, he was such a matchup problem and such a savvy player, just knowing how to get open and knowing how to win those battles against those linebackers. And they had big games. Every time you turned around, it was like 7-on-7, and our guys up front did a great job. But yeah, I kind of wish our defense would have played so well and we'd have been in a shootout, because we might could have had. I might still have that record. That record's been broke many times so far, since then. But that was definitely a good game.
Yeah, but you set the school record then, and you'll be immortalized with that number forever. And I mean, you guys, I know maybe the season didn't go how you wanted, but still finish with a winning record. I mean, by the time you're done there, you got a conference championship under your belt. You got that GMAC Bowl win, which is one of the best games in Southern Miss history. And man, you finish your career with over 2,000 yards in 3+ seasons, which nobody had ever done. Not Lee Roberts, not Brett Favre. How does that make you feel, man, when you put up those kind of stats that those kind of names hadn't even touched?
Yeah. Well, we didn't think about it a lot then, and I don't think about it a ton now. But now that you mention it, it says, number one, you played with some good players. That was one thing, and the other thing, it meant that you found a way to stay on the field, and it's something that I wasn't the most talented guy, but I wanted to be the toughest guy out there, and I never wanted to be a guy that had to come out because he was hurt or whatever. I don't recall ever, having to miss a game, and I wanted to be that guy that could be dependable. And so I guess those numbers, looking back at it over those 3 years, it just confirms that, number one, you played with some good dudes, and you was able to stay out there. And a lot of times that's half the battle. Yeah, I was so scared to come out, because heck, I didn't want nobody to play because I didn't want nobody to take my spot. You know what I mean? You don't want to give those reps up because somebody may go light it up, because I knew, the way I even got the job was, that was fate. That was a God thing. That was, and it just worked out. And ever since that happened and I found a way to get on the field, I never wanted to give anybody the chance to get back out there. So you play through some stuff, you lie about some stuff, you say you're not hurt, whatever. And, you just find a way to keep showing up. That's half the battle.
Oh, man, you took some words out of my mouth right now, because when people talk about you, Jeff, through the years, I mean, heck yeah, he was accurate. He could sling that ball like nobody's business, but he was tough, and he had that Southern Miss grit. And that's how you want to be remembered, if you ask me. You had that grit.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And we had, you had some guys that you played with. I think of a guy like Billy Clay, was a guy that I think epitomized and Buck and all those guys and we just had a great group of dudes that just kind of, you hung your hat on being a tough offense, and that's kind of that was our calling card during that time.
Yeah, but what a career you had right there, man. And you had dreams of the NFL. And look what happened. You get drafted 7th round to Seattle. Man,
Yeah.
What'd that make you feel like, just that process building up to the draft and making your dreams come true?
It was one of those things that, I had finished with school and ball was over, and I didn't really know how it was going to go. I felt like I might get an opportunity. You had Canada going on. You had NFL Europe. I went out and just knocked on Bus Cook's door at his office and said, "Hey, man, I don't know if you know who I am or not, but, I need an agent. I know you got some big ones, whatever. Can I sign, whatever." And so we met and I started the process and started training and really didn't know what path it would take. Wanted to get an opportunity to get in a camp and draft day comes along and first day, back then it was a 2-day deal. First day, you get a call or two and then it got later in the draft and, had an opportunity. Indianapolis called and said, "Hey man, we want to sign you as a free agent deal. We're going to get this ready." So I thought that was going to be the way it was going to play out. And that's the time Peyton Manning was doing his thing. I said, "Man, that'd be a great place to go learn." But then, Seattle calls and, Holmgren and said, "Hey, we want to sign you on a free agent deal to come out to Seattle." Well, I didn't know where Seattle was, and it was a long way off. And he said, "But we got to know right now." And I'm just sitting there in my apartment at Mark IV Apartments, and nobody's there but me and Lisa, my wife. And he says, "We got to know right now." And I was like, Coach, I don't know right now. I've got this other thing here. I mean, can I have an hour, whatever? Can we talk about? Can I call you back? Told him, "Can I call you back?" And so it got quiet, and then he said, "Hey, don't worry about it. We just made your decision for you." So that's kind of how the phone call went about. I said, "What do you mean you made it for me?" He says, "Well, we're drafting you here with this pick." And so I was ecstatic, and that's kind of how that conversation went. It was kind of a stressful 4 or 5 minutes on the phone. And so you get out there and I had a great experience, met a lot of great people. Still, to this day, keep in contact with some of the guys. And, Trent Dilfer was a guy that, now he's at UAB as the head coach. He and Matt and Jim Zorn was the quarterback coach up there at the time. Those guys, I learned so much from those guys. You don't really know how that thing's going to go. You're kind of waiting for your opportunity, and camp went well. The first year, and there was a time or two in that first year where, they had some injuries. I was the backup, for 2 or 3 games, and you just don't get the opportunity or whatever. And but knew at that time, I knew that, hey, I think coaching is where I want to be. So if I was going to be, on borrowed time, if you will, I wanted to soak up everything I could soak up. I wanted to learn everything. So, and I took every note. I've got so many notebooks right now of just every meeting, every schematic, every drawing, whatever. And, and got done with that and kind of been in the coaching world ever since.
And real quick, before we get into your coaching resume, which is pretty awesome on that high school level, what you've been doing, well, I do want to ask you from a quarterback perspective, what's some of the differences in the game from college to pro that you found? Speed, size? I mean, what were some things you had to adjust to?
A couple things. I think 2 things. Number one, it didn't matter who you played in college. It didn't matter if you played Tennessee, Alabama, whoever. There was always somebody on defense that you felt like you could pick on. There was somebody you could go after. There was a weak spot somewhere. Didn't matter who you played. There was always a guy that you wanted to put your best guy against him, and you felt like you were going to win. Those guys don't really exist on those Sunday rosters. They're always solid across the board. The second thing that was a huge adjustment was what is open. What is open in college is that's not what's open in the NFL. The windows and the separation are so much more tighter. You've got to anticipate. You've got to be on top of everything, and the ball's got to come out before he's open, and you got to anticipate him being open. Because if you waited till he was open before you threw it, it was picked off, or you were late, or whatever. And so, the definition of what is open, I think, from a quarterback standpoint, was a big change. And I'm sure every offense is different at that level. I know, playing up there in the true, I guess, West Coast, thing. There's a lot of things that they put on you from a quarterback standpoint, from protections and formations and personnel groupings and all those kind of things that is something you just got to get used to. But it was that was probably the two things that jumped out to me as a different deal once you get up there.
Oh, great way to put it. Great perspective from a quarterback right there. And what's cool, you can always say, I played a couple years in the NFL, man. That's something to hang your hat on.
Yeah.
But it got you into coaching. And coaching immediately on the high school level. I mean, for 4 years at Satsuma High School and then 3 years at Jackson High School. Now at Saraland. We'll get into Saraland in a second. But what was your calling to be a high school football coach?
We had built a house back home, while I was in Seattle, and we'd come back home. And, I actually a lot of people don't know it. I actually signed with the LA Avengers in Arena One for a week.
I didn't see that when I Googled you. So
yeah, no, because it didn't ask. I got a great story, man. We get back September, October. I love hunting season, so I didn't do much that fall but hunt. It was awesome. And so it got to be about January, and Lisa's like, hey, you got to go get a job. What are you going to do? And I'm thinking the ball's not over. Well, I signed with the LA Avengers, which Arena, that was the big league, I guess, back then. And so I go out there, and we're practicing at a junior college deal, and I'm staying at a Red Roof Inn and I grew up in Deer Park, down on dirt road, and I'm in downtown LA in what I think is a rough part of LA, staying in a Red Roof Inn by myself, playing on a field that's about 30 yards wide, and a game where you spend your whole life as a quarterback learning how to process, how to anticipate. Well, you go from real football to arena football. I know Dustin did it and had a lot of success. That's a totally different game. You kind of throw out everything that you learned growing up and you're starting over. So I had a moment that one night that epiphany, whatever. I was looking for a way to get out of that deal because I knew I didn't want to stay for 6 months in that Red Roof Inn. And I got a call one night. There's a local high school, Satsuma, needed a coach. I'm 23, 24. I think, man, if I can go coach and be the head coach, I think I know everything about football. I found out real quick I know very little. But so I get a midnight flight headed back to Mobile. And so I fly in, I call the LA Avengers the next morning and thank them for the opportunity, but it's just not for me. And so that's kind of how I got into coaching. And, had an opportunity at a program that was kind of downtrodden a little bit. Had some of my coaches from high school that came with me and kind of kept me in the straight and narrow for the first couple of years till I figured a lot of stuff out. And, but it's been a good road. I've definitely enjoyed the path that we've been on the last 20 years.
Heck yeah, man. And thanks for sharing that arena ball story, man. I didn't see that when I Googled you for 3-4 hours, man.
I wasn't there long enough for it to make Google. I wasn't there long enough for it to make Google. So.
but great story in LA, man.
Yeah.
But you have had one heck of a head coaching run, man, in high school. Satsuma 4 years, Jackson for 3 years. And man, at Saraland, going in your 13th season, you guys won the state championship last year for the first time in school history. How did that feel with the program you built and reaching that summit of a state championship?
that was a special year, and if, I've been there 4 times. That was a fourth trip to the championship. And I've had 3, one at Jackson and then 2 others at Saraland where we made it to championship and had some outstanding games. And we lost 2 on the last play of the game. And so you go there 3 times and you don't get it done, and you have 2 what you'd say are bad beats. You wonder if you're ever going to get back. And we had a year last year with a bunch of young kids. I'm telling you now, a bunch of sophomores offensively that just absolutely lit the world on fire. And the stars came aligned, and we got hot at the right time, and we played some really good football. And we got it done. We had a great run through the playoffs, had a tough run, and I'm fortunate enough to coach, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and KJ Lacey, and Ryan Williams is, listed as the number 1 guy in the country in 25 class. So when you got guys like that, it makes your job really easy, and you become really smart as a coach. It's funny how that.
That's awesome. You're coming to this really great offensive mind, dude.
Well, cutting edge, man. We're cutting edge right now. We got a great running back that's got offers all over the place, and so it's fun from an offensive standpoint, and really great kids. I mean, that we got some really talented players, but they don't get the credit of just being, such an awesome group of kids and great parents. But we'll see. We'll kick off next Friday night on ESPN. On the
we got Jeff. Let's talk about that. Let me tee this up right for you. Anybody watching? August 25th, Lipscomb, one of the best programs in America, facing you guys, number 1 in Alabama. I mean, what a matchup, man. You talk about, is the town going to shut down for this one?
No, hey, they have sold out. I think we're near close to 1,000 season tickets have been sold. They sold 1,100 tickets this morning on top of the season tickets, and we're still a week and a half away. It's, this thing came together really quick. Lipscomb is kind of a boarding school in Nashville, very similar to IMG. They're going to play IMG this Friday night. So a great program. Trent, was the head coach there for a couple of years, Dilford. Now Kevin Mawai, NFL Hall of Famer, took that program over. So, this thing kind of came together really quick. ESPN, that whole deal. It's going to give us a chance to play at home. We played some of those games, but this will be our first chance to kind of showcase Saraland and all the great things that's going on in our system. But we better be ready to play. I mean, we got a really good team. But this is a top 10 team in the country. So, I think our kids wanted to be tested, and so the challenge will be big. But I'm telling you what, our kids have been, working, and I think we're going to play well. We'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah, man. Looking forward to that. I know a lot of Southern Miss fans be tuning into that with Jeff Kelly as head coach on the big stage. And speaking of Southern Miss one more time, man, one of the coolest things happened for you in 2014, man. You got immortalized at Southern Miss and got that Hall of Fame call. What did that mean for you to enter the Southern Miss Hall of Fame in 2014?
Such an honor. Such an honor. It's one of those things that, I think football is just the ultimate team game, and it takes everybody working together, and you got 11 guys out there that circle the wagons each and every play, and you got to have your brothers back, and you got to have 11 positives on every play, all those things that we always talk about. And Southern Miss has been such a great thing for our family. My wife's a graduate of Southern Miss, and, all the great experiences and the great people and the great stories that we'll carry with us our entire life. And just to get an opportunity to be recognized like that, I was humbled, and just thankful, for everything and everybody that's poured into our lives. You think about people, within the program, that we all love, a lady named Tracy Robbins, just people that you just think back of, people that pour into you and our program, and to just have that opportunity for somebody to say, hey, man, you did some good stuff here while you were a student and a player at Southern Miss. That was such one of the top things that, I'm most proud of, as a player, and especially a Southern Miss Golden Eagle.
Again, well deserved, man. One of the best quarterbacks in Southern Miss football history, easily. And man, always give give the guest a little honor, privilege, maybe a little family updates. Give us some family life or what's going on out there with you, Jeff.
So we're wide open, getting ready. Caden is my son. I remember Coach Bauer sent us a letter the day he was born 16 years ago and said, "Hey man, you got an offer to Southern Miss." And so he's 16 years old. He's a junior. He's a receiver for us. A great kid, class pro. He's just doing awesome. I got 11-year-old girl, Lucy, who is her mama made over. Lisa has, they get all of our buddies that we all went to school with. They give me a hard time. Lisa was probably more well known at Southern Miss during our time than I was. I mean, she was a Dixie Darling. She was on the Southern Misses. She was on all the posters, like the preseason posters and the covers of so all our buddies that, and so she's a dance teacher here at our school. And so we're kind of a family deal here in Saraland, but, we're just day to day, trying to enjoy life, enjoy, the blessings that the good Lord's put in front of us. Our family's good. And we're thankful to be where we are.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for the family updates right there, Jeff. And real quick, man, as we start wrapping things up, what's a message you might have for the Southern Miss fans watching this from the great Jeff Kelly?
Well, number one, there's been so many great teams and great players come through that love this university. And we're so thankful for all the fans that's been with us from day one. And number one, thank you for supporting the university and supporting the program. But also, the things that I really, have enjoyed is getting to know the staff that's there now. Coach Will Hall, the exciting things that they're doing on a day-to-day basis is kind of bringing, the buzz back, the excitement back. I know they're getting pumped up about the year and just continue to support and love on those kids and love on that program and continue to make it such a special place as it's been for all of us. And but we appreciate, all the things that all of our fans have they've always had our back, and it's a special place and special place to play, and it'll always be that to us.
Oh, Jeff, great message for the fans right there. And wrapping things up here, man. I could talk to you all day, but it's been such an honor to catch up with an old teammate of mine too. Only around you for 1 year, but I knew big things were coming with Jeff Kelly, man. Thank you so much for being on.
No doubt. Hey, it was fun. I mean, you guys were a great group of guys that, coming in as a young guy, you kind of see how you went about your business day to day and, how hard you played and what it took to prepare and all those kind of things that I always remembered, watching that group. It was such a great team that year as well. And, I feel like I had the best seat of the house in 1997. I got to signal the plays, and there was a lot of good stuff in there. So I felt like I was a part of it.
Oh, yeah. Big part of it, too, man. Thank you for being a part of it, too. And so, but I think wrapping things up, man, Jeff, I think the fans would love Jeff Kelly and myself giving everybody a big Southern Miss
to the top.
Well, one thing I love about this show is catching up with former Southern Miss football players who were full of that grit and toughness that we always talk about. That's it for another edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime. And if you're enjoying the show, I'm just going to ask you to do something absolutely free to do. And that's just spread the word of the show. Retweet it on Twitter, repost it on Facebook and Instagram, what have you. And just tell your family and friends that you're enjoying the show. Until next time, as always, it's Southern Miss to the top.